This is number 1 of the 2021 free response question for BC Calc. Just take a second to read the questions. So number 1 is relatively simple. It just asks for the estimate of the slope at f is 2.25. So we just plug in, we see the definition of the derivative. So f prime of 2.25 is approximately f of 2.5 minus f of 2 divided by the dx, so which is just 0.5. 4 divided by 0.5 is 8. So the interpretation is at 2.25 centimeters from center, and then just be careful about the wording and what the actual interpretation is. So the density increases for every additional centimeter away from the center, because R is measured in milligrams per square centimeter, so that's density. And then R is centimeters. Okay, so B is asking for a right Riemann sum done on f of R, and then it's not just that though, it's asking you to approximate R times f of R, so you need to multiply the function by R every time you do the Riemann sum. So what I did was I drew out the Riemann sum graph. So it's a right Riemann sum, so the point is on the right side of the rectangle. And what I did was the first thing was, so the dx was 1, and then the vertical was f of 1 is 2, so it's 1 times 2, but then you have to multiply by r2, because it's asking you to approximate 2 pi integral from 0 to 4 of r f of r. So you multiply by r, which in this case you plugged in 1 into r, so it's also 1. So what I did was just 2 times 1 times 1, but I didn't write the 1, but that's what I did. For the second one, you do the same thing. You plug in f of r, so f of 2, since we're at 2 right now, f of 2, which becomes 6, and then you multiply by the radius, which is 2, so 6 times 2, and then dx is just 1, so 6 times 2 times 1. So you just do the same thing for the other 2, and then you can't forget to multiply at the end, because it's asking you to multiply the whole thing by 2 pi, and that's the approximation that we want to find. So we do that, so 2 pi multiplied by every single right Riemann sum rectangle, which gives you 845.008. And then C asks asks if this is an overestimate or underestimate. So since this function is increasing and we're using a right Riemann sum, all of these areas are adding to the estimate. So this would be these areas aren't being estimated enough, so this should be an underestimate. This should be an overestimate, right? Overestimate, yeah, because the actual area is not included in these rectangles. Okay, so D asks for the density of the bacteria in a petri dish function. Okay, multiply this function, so on interval 1 to 4 instead of 0 to 4, so just be careful about that. And then if you want to find the average value of a function which is asking for, so you need to find the average value of g of r on the interval 1 to 4, because you want to find which value is equal to g of k, and then you can find k once you get the value of g of r. So if you want to find the average value of g of r on the interval 1 to 4, you take the integral from 1 to 4 of it, and then you divide it by the distance of the integral, from a distance of the limits of the integration. So I just plug that into my calculator. 1/3 times the integral from 1 to 4 of g of r dr, which got me 9.876. So that's the average value of g of r on the interval 1 to 4. So now the question asks to find this equation basically. So for what value of k is this equation satisfied? So if you just do the inverse function of that, you get 2.497. So how I did this is I just plugged I just made y equals 9.876 onto my calculator as an equation, and then it's got the intersections. But yeah, if you just do that, you can find k, which is 2.497. That is how you do number 1 of the 2021 free response question.